Hello and welcome back to the Celtic Way. I am your host, John McGinley. We've got a special guest today, former Celtic and Scotland star Simon Donnelly, famously an important part of the squad who helped Celtic win the league in the 97-98 season. Simon, I'm not sure this is spoken about enough, but only Henrik Larsson scored more goals than you that season. That's not a bad contribution to Celtic history, is it?
Good start. It's a good start. I think me and Craig Burley were next on. I think Henrik got 19 and me and Craig were on 16.
Yeah, exactly. So again, that's a very healthy contribution to one of the most historic seasons in Celtic's history, and we appreciate you for it. Now, the reason we've got you on the show today, Simon, is because I believe you're taking a foray into the theatre world over the next wee while as part of a kind of special take on the Singing I'm No a Billy, He's a Tim play. Now that play's been around for a few years, but I believe this is a kind of new addition, a new take on it that you're involved with. So how are you feeling about treading the boards as it were?
A lot more nervous than I was playing football. Of that, I'm sure. Yeah, it's 20 years of this play, and Scott Kyle has brought it back to life with bringing myself and Charlie Miller into the show with Rob McLean and David Tanner as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's something a wee bit surreal, but we're at the Fringe tomorrow, Friday the 1st of August, and we've already played the Pavilion and Airgate, which when I actually say that out loud, it seems a bit weird. But yeah, it's something that's been quite exciting and new, and we're enjoying it.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I believe it's on at the Edinburgh International Conference Centre until late August. I believe you're on, as you say, you're on tomorrow, the 2nd, the 8th, the 9th, and the 15th. So people should go along and check that out if they want to see a new edition of the play, even if they've seen it before. This is a new version of it. And we'll put the details for tickets and to buy tickets and all the dates and things below in the video description if you want to check that out as we're discussing. But Simon, obviously, we'll chat a bit about kind of Celtic this summer and how you feel. We know you've been watching the pre-season games because you've been doing some co-commentary on it for
Yeah.
Celtic TV. How are you feeling about how the pre-season's gone and where Celtic are heading into the new season?
I think they've had a decent pre-season, to be honest. I was away doing a little bit of coaching up in the Isle of Lewis for the Ajax game, so I've never seen that. Obviously, a disappointing result. But I thought the games before I'd covered Sport Lisbon and Newcastle, and I thought that the boys were doing reasonably well. I think there's a wee bit of frustration there, obviously, in terms of getting new guys in. The transfer window's still got a bit of time to go, so we just need to be patient and hopefully the club can get a few players in that will put pressure on the guys that are already there and lift everything. Like every season, you're wanting a wee bit of freshness, so I'm sure that'll arrive.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones where there's kind of a frustration for the stuff off the pitch, with regards to transfers, as you've alluded to there. But like things on the pitch, I agree with you. They've looked pretty good.
Yeah,
Apart from the Ajax game, I thought the Sporting game in particular, just being away in Portugal and kind of the way they controlled large portions of that match, I thought bode well and was similar to kind of what we saw on the USA Tour last season, going into the
yeah,
Champions League last season. And there's encouraging signs there on the pitch. And if we get this group together and working well, then hopefully Celtic can attack this kind of upcoming European qualifier. Simon, I'm just going to throw up the teams because the teams that Celtic can face in this draw, the Champions League draw on Monday, have been confirmed. There's 8 teams or so. It's Basel of Switzerland, Sturm Graz of Austria, Pafos of Cyprus, Dynamo Kiev, Slovan Bratislava or Kairat Karabakh or Skendika. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a tough set of fixtures,
yeah.
and I think the signs are that Celtic on the pitch are building towards those effectively. And actually, it was a good run of teams that Celtic played during the pre-season because, as we know, Sporting, Newcastle, they're Champions League level teams. They're going to be in the league phase this year.
Yeah, listen, it's not going to be easy at all.
Mm.
I was on the radio last night talking about it. It's so early in the season as well, and people will say, well, you should be fit, and the boys will be fit, but getting that rhythm, that kind of match rhythm is not easy straight away. So I think it'll be difficult, but I think Celtic have got more than enough to get through it into the knockout stages. and it was an experience last year where the new kind of format worked well for Celtic as well, getting into the knockout stages. That's where they want to be. So it's an important tie that's going to come up, and we'll see on Monday who we get.
How did you feel about pre-season as a player? I know some players dread it because it's a lot of hard work. I know some people really anticipate it. Even if you dread it, does it build up to a nice peak just before you get into the competitive stuff?
Yeah, there's always like that kind of keenness to get back, and as I said there, a freshness, a new season, and the preparation. Listen, pre-season's tough. And I think back to when we won the league in '98, which you're touching on there a minute ago. We played Croatia Zagreb the following season, and they gave us a bit of a doing away from home. I think we won the first leg 1-0, and they beat us 3-0 over there. Nothing's changed. It's really difficult at this stage of the season to get into that, and as I say, find that rhythm. But Celtic have done well in recent times, and last year was brilliant. To get to the knockout stages against Bayern and push Bayern all the way. It's a real credit to the boys and their efforts last year, and that's where the fans want to be. They want to have these big European nights. These are the ones that you kind of remember. So hopefully they can do it and get through.
A couple of new signings kind of already bedding into the team, the starting team. We know all about Kieran Tierney and what he brings. We'll talk about him in a moment. But what have your initial impressions of Benjamin Negrenby been, in the pre-season matches? I know it's tough to judge a player in that environment sometimes because when the competitive games will be a lot more physical, a lot more competitive, probably quicker as well, especially in the Scottish Premiership. But what are you kind of seeing from Benjamin Negrin and what he offers the Celtic team?
Well, it's early stages. I covered that Sporting Lisbon game. I like him. Yeah. I think at this stage of his career, I think he's got 200 odd games under his belt, so he's got experience playing at a level. I thought his decision making, the positions that he was taking up within that midfield, I kind of thought he was a wide player, but watching him, I think he will be in that midfield three. And I was impressed with him. And I think it's a strong area of Celtic's team, but I think he's going to push. I think he's going to be in there, and it's going to put pressure on the other guys to try and get the other two slots in there. But I was impressed, as you say, early days, but you can just tell sometimes with the way decisions are being made on the pitch, his choice of passing, the areas he was taking up. I think he's going to be a big player for Celtic this season.
He's only just turned 24. He does play with more maturity. As you say, he's got a lot of experience for being that age, and it is apparent in the way he plays. And as you say, that decision making, he's got nice technique. And Brendan Rodgers was saying that he might need to work on his physicality and that kind of defensive side of the game, and that's something we'll see develop. Just on Kieran Tierney, kind of he's getting up to speed as well. He offers Celtic something different on that left. We know what Greg Taylor offered. I was actually a big fan of Greg Taylor, but he played in a different way on that left side, as we know, a lot more measured, a lot more patient in his play. It seems already that Kieran Tierney is just a lot more direct and eager to impact Celtic in an attacking sense in that attacking third.
Yeah, listen, I think he's going to prove to be the best signing. I think he knows what Celtic's all about. Been there before, the experience. He's sitting 27, 28. I think if he can steer clear of injuries, he's going to be a major player this season. We've seen the assists against Newcastle. He loves to get forward. I think he can even offer left centre back if needed. I know Trusty's had a decent pre-season, but I wouldn't have any qualms of putting Kieran in there as well. And he just knows the club. He's a winner, and I think he'll prove to be the top signing. You look at guys like Callum McGregor and James Forrest, who are so important round about the club. For guys coming in, Kieran Tierney's of that ilk, so I think he's going to be a great signing. And he will go from strength to strength this season. The only concerns, obviously, he's picking up injuries. If he can stay clear of that, then we've got a top player again.
Yeah, it's from the way he's talking, it's almost like he's done an apprenticeship at Arsenal and he's come back to be the ultimate Celtic player that he can be. Just from what he said in interviews, he's talked about being more mature, a more complete player, and all the learnings that he's had from Arsenal, the ups and downs at Arsenal, and obviously
Yeah.
he went over to Spain for a season as well. But that he will be more mature. But he was around Celtic in the first. He was obviously breaking through as a young talent, but he was seen as a kind of cheeky chappy type, kind of buzzing about the place, also bringing that energy. I think this time he'll just, as you say, I think he's ready to step up into a leadership role at Celtic, and that's really pleasing to see. And as he's kind of alluded to, I think he said in a press conference, you don't sign for Celtic at 27 or 28 if you're thinking about leaving again. So he's in it for the long haul
Yeah.
for this, next stage of his career. He's devoting himself back to Celtic, and it's fantastic to see from a supporter's perspective.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, you don't always. There's not many people get a second chance
Mm,
at Celtic. The manager's obviously back, and Kieran coming back uh, at this stage of his career, he should be at his peak at 27, 28. And as you say, more mature, a better all round player, I think, for it. And I think Celtic will benefit from that. But yeah, I think he'll come back and appreciate the second chance as well. And as you say, in it for the long haul. So I'm really looking forward to watching him this year. And I think he'll be one of the major players for Celtic.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about was kind of like the challenges of youth breaking through at Celtic, because it seems a hot topic at the moment. There's not really been sustained breakthroughs from the academy for a little while, and I thought you could offer some insight on it because, as people watching this will know, of a certain vintage, including myself, by the way, I remember when you were breaking through at Celtic, and you were very much a hype talent at Celtic, and there was challenges and pressures along with that.
Yeah.
It won't be quite the same as the 90s. There'll be differences in the way players break through now, but what are the challenges of breaking through at Celtic? Everyone talks about this kind of winning mentality you need and how that's hard to develop as a youngster, but first of all, how did you find it when you were first breaking into the Celtic team?
Good question. At 19, I signed at 17. I made my debut at 19. When I look back on it now, you know, it was the dream. It was to get in that first team, to be a professional football player. I kind of took it in my stride. It
Mm,
sounds, and I wasn't arrogant at all. It sounds arrogant, but I kind of took it in my stride. I think the youthfulness of it, a lot of hard work, and being in the right place at the right time. I speak about a story where Lou McCarry came over to watch us doing some shooting after training, and it went well. In the next couple of days, I was in the first team, training with the first team. Little things like that. When I look back now, you're like, that just worked for me at the time. But I took it in my stride. To talk about it nowadays, I think it's tough. You look at the players. We just spoke about McGregor,
mm,
Tierney, Forrest. They're the
mm.
ones of real note recently that have come through. Uh, it's difficult. It's a different playing field, I think, a wee bit nowadays. There's a lot more recruitment from out with that you have to, compete with. Uh, but yeah, listen, there's been a little bit of youthfulness in the pre-season, and
Yeah.
I think the fans can relate to that. I think any supporter at any club wants to see young boys coming through. I certainly love to see any sort of youth coming through at Celtic because I went through it myself, and it's brilliant if players can develop into being first team players. But it's hard. It's probably more difficult nowadays than in my time because there was a few round
Mm,
about it at that time myself. Brian McLaughlin came in at
mm.
the time with me. Stuart Gray. These were all boys that I played with at the 18s, and we all kind of got a little go at it. But it's difficult. It is difficult.
And fans see it from the outside looking in. They just see these young players when they get brief minutes and glimpses here and there. But I suppose the real work and the real impressions they need to make is on a day to day basis at Lennoxtown,
Yeah.
and that's really where they're going to make strides with the manager. Even being in and around the squad, if they're making a trip as a kind of bench player, the manager will be making judgments all the time about their
All the
personality,
time.
their demeanour, and if they're ready for it.
Yeah, all the time. You're getting tested all the time. But it also develops you as a player playing with that calibre of player in training. It really does, because you're up against top players, you're playing with top players. And from my experience, I remember that time when Lou McCarry put me into the first team, and people say, "Were you nervous? Were you this? Were you that?" And as I say, I took it my stride. It became easier because you're playing with better players. I'm playing things around the corner for guys like Paul McStay, and they're giving me it back. And this is an absolute dream for me. It makes it easier for you when you're playing with better players. And for the development of these young boys, being around that first team and being around that kind of level, it can only help them. It can only help them. But the challenge is then, how do you get into the starting 11? How do you displace some of these guys in front of me? That's the challenge, and it always will be at teams of that level.
Yeah, Brendan Rodgers talks about personality a lot, and I think that's kind of what you're alluding to there. Is like you need to have that gallousness, you need to have that fearlessness. We
Yeah,
saw glimpses of it in a couple of matches last year with young Sean McArdle coming into competitive games and just immediately looking apart off the bench.
yeah, he
And I
did.
guess we're all craving one or two of these guys to kind of get those opportunities a bit more often, but the manager has a balance too because he needs to put a team in the park that picks up the points.
Yeah, the pressure at Celtic, you have to win every
Yeah.
game. But the young lad you speak about, McArdle, I thought was terrific when he came in. Really
Mm.
made an impression on me. Probably a player on a similar area of the pitch, try to create and do things clever in the final third. I thought he was really impressive. But you have to do that day to day, and as I say, displace boys that are in front of you and get yourself into that starting team. That's the challenge for these lads. But there is a lot of mentality as well. As I say, if you'd asked me to speak in front of somebody back when I was 17, 18, 19, I'd have completely folded. But I was comfortable with, what I was doing, playing football, and that kind of drove me. That drove me. I was obsessed with it to be a success and get in that first team. So that has a lot to do with mentality.
And now you're doing an Edinburgh Fringe show, so that just
I
shows
know,
how far you've come,
and
Simon.
I'm more nervous than that.
Um, yeah, it is an interesting one. I guess as well, the difference between now and kind of back in the 90s, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like young players back then just kind of did what they were told. Whereas now there's a lot of power with these young players. Some of them have agents at a very early age. There's all sorts of clubs kind of looking at them, potentially giving them pathways elsewhere, and it just becomes
Yeah,
so competitive. And that adds another bit of, I wouldn't say friction, but just like another dynamic between the players and the club that's hard to figure out as they develop too.
yeah. I think you would just look at the world in general now is totally
Mm.
different. It was a wee bit more simplistic back in my day, and as I say, the drive. I came into Celtic at 17 and played with under 18s, played with reserves. It was different football. I mean, I keep going on about it with any people like yourself that I speak about. The
Mm.
reserve football back then was an absolute education. You were playing against, because the squads were smaller, so you were playing. Celtic were, say, at Tannadice, we were playing Dundee United at Celtic Park in reserves.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be up against senior players, you'd be playing with senior players, and that was priceless. Learning your trade at that level, you're still playing at a really good level. But the determination to get through, and there were some really good players in my youth team at Celtic, and the target was just try and get as close to the first team as you can. Can you get into it? There was no social media. There
No.
was I didn't have an agent at the time. It was
Mm-hmm.
You were very focused and driven. Just I want to be a success. I want to be a professional footballer. And then, of course, when you get in the first team, it's trying to stay there as well for a period of time. But yeah, I would just say nowadays it's totally different. And the playing fields.
Just on the reserve football there, Simon, I do remember. I remember a game. I would going to a game at Celtic Park. I think it was a reserve game against Rangers, and
uh,
the main stand was almost full for it. It was like people were turning out to see these games.
Listen, but then for us as players, you were playing in front of crowds. You were playing at the
Mm-hmm.
proper stadiums.
Mm-hmm.
The jump between reserve football and first team football wasn't as big. Nowadays, you've got all the kind of youth stuff, and sometimes, listen, I've been out of coaching for a number of years, so maybe it's not right for me to say. But when I was in it, I thought the jump from youth football to first team football was huge. You know, there was youth football and it was all nicey and we'll keep the ball and whatever. When I was back playing with, as I say, senior players, it was ruthless. You had
Hmm.
to grow up and compete, otherwise you were left by the wayside. So that's a wee bit different nowadays. As I say, there's bigger squads. The whole game has moved on. I'm not sure what the answer is, but certainly at that time for me, it worked. It helps your development. You were playing, as I say, with first team players alongside you, and you were also playing against proper opposition.
I'm interested to see how this kind of cooperation stuff works with regards to like sending a few players on loan to a championship side, because the
Yeah,
championships can be decent at times. We see it on Friday nights. We see the games like it's a decent level, I think, for some of the younger players to get exposure,
yeah.
and kind of build their confidence as much as anything. And we don't know quite how that's going to shake out in terms of Celtic specifically at the moment, or how many players are going to be on loan where. But I do think that's a positive step, because then there's more fluidity. Because theoretically, they could play well for a month at a championship side and then come back into the Celtic setup without having to wait until January, etc.
Yeah, I think things like that would work, definitely.
Mm.
I mean, you look at Callum McGregor, got out on loan
Hmm.
at a young age, and now he's captain of Celtic. I think competitive football is key, and if some of these guys aren't quite ready, or the manager doesn't deem them ready to be thrown into the first team, go and get first team experience somewhere else for your development, 100%.
Simon, thanks very much for joining us today. We'll cut our chat short. I'm sure we could both talk for another 2 hours about Celtic, but we'll cut it there for now. I really appreciate your time. As I mentioned at the top of the show, Simon's appearing in a special edition of the Singing I'm No a Billy He's a Tim play, which is at the Edinburgh International Conference Centre starting tomorrow throughout August. We'll put the link for tickets below in the video description, and yeah, you can check that out if you fancy it. Simon, I hope you have a great time at the Edinburgh Fringe and beyond, and I hope you enjoy the season, and we'll perhaps see you again on the Celtic Way sometime.
Cheers, mate. Been a
Thanks very
pleasure.
much.
Thank you. Cheers.